In the early 2010s, Microsoft was dying. Now, that might sound like an exaggeration, but it was a slow, creeping death by irrelevance. The same giant that put a computer on every desk was being buried by its own success, trapped in a toxic culture that cared more about bureaucracy than innovation. The company that defined the digital world was becoming a punchline. It was just sitting on the sidelines, watching as Apple, Google, and Amazon ran away with mobile, search, and the cloud. Its stock price had been flat for a decade, and investors were losing patience. By 2014, things were dire. The question wasn't just if Microsoft could change, but if it even remembered how. So, how did this sinking ship not only stay afloat, but turn into one of the most valuable and innovative companies on the planet? The answer is in a painful but powerful lesson, a rule that applies to massive companies and to our own lives. For real change to happen, the pain of changing has to feel less than the pain of staying the same. This is the story of how one leader, staring down the slow death of a titan, chose the sharp, gut-wrenching pain of a total overhaul, and in doing so, saved Microsoft from itself, the gilded cage of stagnation. To really get the miracle of Microsoft's turnaround, you have to understand just how deep the rot went. By the 2010s, Microsoft was a fortress, sure, but it was a fortress under siege, where the enemies were inside the walls. The biggest problem was the culture, specifically a system called stack ranking. It was a forced curve, meaning that on any team, a certain number of employees had to be labeled as stars, most as average, and a set percentage as failures. Imagine you're on a team of 10 brilliant engineers. You're all fantastic. But because of stack ranking, your manager was forced to call at least one of you a poor performer. This rank and yank system created a nasty, backstabbing environment. Instead of working together to beat the competition, Microsoft's best people were busy fighting each other. The goal wasn't innovation, it was survival. Great ideas died not because they were bad, but because they stepped on someone else's toes. There was a famous cartoon that showed Microsoft's org chart as 3 gangs pointing guns at each other, and employees would tell you, it wasn't that far off. All this fighting on the inside made them blind to what was happening on the outside. While the iPhone and Android were creating a whole new app economy, Microsoft was still desperately trying to protect its Windows kingdom. It ignored the threat of cloud computing, a field its own people were working on, because it threatened the profitable server business. Under the CEO at the time, Steve Ballmer, the strategy was defensive and closed off. The company completely missed the boat on search, on mobile, on social media, and was dangerously late to the cloud. The most symbolic failure of all was the disastrous purchase of Nokia's phone business for over $7 billion. It was a desperate, last-ditch attempt to compete in a mobile world it just didn't get. Microsoft was losing talent. Its brand felt like a relic, and its future looked like a slow fade to black. The pain of staying stagnant was enormous, a constant, dull ache of missed chances and a decaying culture. But for the people inside, the fear of tearing down the machine that had made them all rich and powerful was even scarier. The company was completely stuck. The catalyst and the new mission. Then, on February 4th, 2014, Microsoft named its third ever CEO. It wasn't some flashy outsider hired to come in and clean house. It was Satya Nadella, a 22-year company veteran. Born in Hyderabad, India, Nadella was an engineer who had quietly worked his way up the ladder. Most importantly, he had been leading Microsoft's small but growing cloud division, which gave him a front-row seat to the company's internal mess and the huge tech shifts it was ignoring. In his very first email to employees, Nadella didn't mince words. Our industry does not respect tradition. It only respects innovation. It was a direct shot at the company's obsession with the past. He knew the problem wasn't a lack of talent or money. It was that the company had lost its soul, its reason for being, beyond just selling more copies of Windows. And that led him to his first, and maybe most important, move. Nadella completely redefined Microsoft's mission. The old one, a computer on every desk and in every home, was a vision they had pretty much already accomplished. The new mission was something else entirely: to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. This wasn't just some corporate slogan. It was a complete change in philosophy. It shifted the focus from what Microsoft sells, like Windows and Office, to who Microsoft serves, which was now everyone, everywhere. It meant that Microsoft's success was no longer chained to its own products. If a customer could get more done using Microsoft software on an iPhone or a Linux server, great. That was a win. This simple idea was revolutionary. It gave every employee a new compass, one that pointed away from internal politics and toward the outside world. It was the first step in turning a company of know-it-alls into a team of learn-it-alls. The unthinkable, the painful, the necessary. With a new mission set, Nadella had to make it real. And this is where the pain really started. The changes he kicked off weren't just small adjustments. They were direct assaults on Microsoft's most sacred beliefs. First, he committed the ultimate heresy. In March 2014, just weeks after taking the job, Nadella stood on a stage and announced Microsoft Office for the Apple iPad. For years, his predecessor had refused to do this, thinking that holding Office hostage would force people to buy Windows tablets. It was a strategy that failed hard. Nadella's decision to put Microsoft's crown jewel on its biggest rival's platform sent a shockwave through the tech industry. Inside Microsoft, it was a clear signal. The Windows First era was over. The new mantra was mobile first, cloud first, and it didn't matter whose mobile it was. Next came the reckoning with the Nokia disaster. That acquisition was the symbol of the old, failing strategy. Instead of trying to save it, Nadella chose to amputate. In 2015, Microsoft announced a jaw-dropping $7.6 billion write-down on the Nokia deal. That's more than they paid for it. And laid off 7,800 employees, mostly from the phone division. It was a brutal, public admission of failure. It was also deeply painful for the thousands who lost their jobs. But it was necessary pain. It stopped the bleeding and let the company pour billions of dollars and a ton of focus away from a fight it had already lost. The third painful change was fully embracing a one-time enemy: open source software. For decades, Steve Ballmer had famously called the open source system Linux a cancer. Under Nadella, Microsoft did the unthinkable. It started building Linux directly into its Azure cloud platform. It open-sourced huge parts of its own code. Then, in 2018, it sealed the deal by buying GitHub, the world's biggest hub for open-source developers, for $7.5 billion. This wasn't just a business move, it was a cultural surrender. It was Microsoft finally admitting that the world was bigger than its own ecosystem, and that working together was more valuable than trying to control everything. Each one of these decisions was painful. They cost money, they cost jobs, and they shattered decades of dogma. But they were all driven by one belief: that the slow, creeping death of staying the same was infinitely more painful than the sharp, transformative shock of real change. What Nadella was really doing was performing surgery on the company's culture. He knew exactly what Peter Drucker meant when he said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." And hey, if you're finding it valuable to see how that cultural shift drove one of the greatest business turnarounds in modern history, take a second to subscribe. We dig into stories just like this every week to pull out the lessons behind real success. The learn-it-all revolution and the new powerhouse. The big strategic moves were one thing, but how do you actually get the people to change? Nadella's most powerful insight was that Microsoft's toxic know-it-all culture had to be replaced by a learn-it-all culture. A know-it-all needs to be the smartest person in the room and feels threatened by different ideas. A learn-it-all, on the other hand, is curious, open to new ideas, and isn't afraid to be wrong. This wasn't just a motivational poster. It was wired into the company's operations. The hated stack ranking system was finally killed off in late 2013, right before Nadella stepped in, and he floored the accelerator on that change. He promoted leaders who showed empathy and a desire to grow. He pushed employees to get out of their bubbles and obsess over what customers actually needed, instead of what internal politics demanded. The new mission, to empower others, was the North Star. The question stopped being, how can we sell more windows, and became, how can we help our customers do more? And when you combine that cultural shift with those huge strategic bets, well, the results speak for themselves. The bet on the cloud paid off bigger than anyone could have imagined. Microsoft Azure, once a tiny side project, is now a monster in the cloud computing space, going head-to-head with Amazon Web Services. The company's commercial cloud revenue exploded, becoming a primary engine of its growth. This cloud-first focus, now paired with a massive push into AI, has put Microsoft at the bleeding edge of the next wave of technology. Acquisitions like LinkedIn and GitHub, which would have been unthinkable before, have massively expanded its influence. And most telling of all, the market has responded. When Nadella took over in 2014, Microsoft was worth around $300 billion. Today, its market cap has soared to over $3 trillion, making it one of the most valuable companies on Earth. That flat, boring stock price from the 2000s is a distant memory. The story of Microsoft's comeback is more than just a business school case study. It's proof of a fundamental truth. Sticking with what you know feels safe. It's comfortable. It's the path of least resistance. But it's a slow poison. The real pain isn't the chaos of change. It's the quiet agony of looking back years from now and realizing the world has passed you by. Satya Nadella didn't just tweak Microsoft's strategy. He changed its entire mindset. He forced a proud, stubborn company to look its own irrelevance in the eye and choose the sharp, difficult, but ultimately freeing pain of reinvention. He proved that for a giant to learn how to dance again, sometimes it has to be willing to break its own bones. The lesson is clear. Whether you're a person, a team, or a trillion-dollar company, you have to get to a point where the pain of staying put is finally, terrifyingly, worse than the fear of what comes next. That's the only time you can truly begin to change.